at the back, very last page of your reading guide. Got it? Christ my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work. For to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. All right. Very good. First of all, I will take your St. Patrick papers. Actually, here's what we'll do. Everybody pass it around this direction until Gianna ends up with a pile of them. And then she can just hand it to me. This is the hardest homeschool thing ever. Like, pass the paper to the... It always like, what? We're going to do what? Oh, and is your name on it? Is there anybody who has forgotten?
I know who mine is.
Yes, but I don't know who you are. Well, maybe you're the only one. Well, you know what? We won't send them back currently. Oh, do you have yours on? Oh, you don't. I don't need the original story, just the story you wrote. Right? Did you write it on there?
We did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fine. That's fine. What in the future? Why don't you go ahead and just write it on a separate piece of paper, and then I don't have to steal your. Actually, can you just remember to give? Because I see it's these questions. Can you just give me this at the end? Because it's got your questions on the back, and I want you to be able to have them. Okay. So you'll be my memory, all right? Because I won't remember, Sean, and your memory says give Mrs. Ferguson my story. Okay. Because I want to read it. All right. Today. And most days, I'm going to try to have an art of the week, some sort of artwork, especially second semester, we're going to talk about the Renaissance, and in which is a lot of artwork. And so this is our art of the week. It's kind of late, maybe in the 1100s or 1200s, but this is Byzantine art. This is from the eastern part of the empire. And yeah, what do you notice about this? First of all, who do you think this is? This is not a hard question.
Mary.
It's Mary and Jesus. Okay. Is there anything you notice about them?
The baby's face looks way too old.
Okay, first of all, that does not look like a baby's face. That looks like, I don't know, maybe like you'd have a business suit on and have a job or something. I'm not sure. So do you think that the artist... I don't know if I want to ask that question. All right, let's just leave it at that. The baby's face doesn't look like a baby's face. Anything else that sticks out, you think, Jan?
Mary's face is a little proportionally off.
Yeah, what's off about it? Can you...
Well, her eyes are like a little too big for the angle, and it's just like everything's not quite angled right,
Yes.
and the forehead's like really.
Okay, yes. So the perspective is off, and also her eyes are not quite the right size. Anything else that just jumps out at you? That it's really pretty, or it's odd, or both?
I like the background.
Like the background. What's it look like?
A temple.
It looks like a church building, doesn't it? It looks like a holy space of some sort. Is there anything in this picture that makes you think this artist is a good artist? By good, I mean reproduces things well. Is there anything that seems particularly admirable? I'm thinking of something in particular, but you don't have to pick my thing, but I'll share my thing with you. Is there anything that you think?
I like the clothing.
See, it's the clothing for me too. Look at the drape. Mm-hmm. You know, that's really hard to draw transparent clothing, if you know what I mean, and make it look like there's actually transparent clothing there. And I love just the folds, the drape. Look at the folds over her leg, the folds here. So it's kind of odd because I look at this and I think, well, this is an artist who knows what he's doing because he can make these beautiful drapes. But yet the baby's face, I want to say, have you ever seen a baby? Do you know what babies look like? Have you ever seen women's eyes? So I feel like something else is going on. It's not because the artist can't paint that they did this. And I will not leave you in suspense. This is something that's true of Byzantine art. It's not, they don't try to make it look real. They're trying to show you something behind the art. They're not, this is almost our ideal of Mary and Jesus. And remember, Jesus was born, Jesus lived. He was God long before he was a baby in Bethlehem, right? He's a baby, but there's a part of him that's not a baby, right? The divine part. And they're trying to communicate things like that through art. Whereas in the West, in Europe, they moved more and more towards, we just like to make it look real. And it's really good art when it looks real until we get into modern art that doesn't look real anymore. Maybe doesn't look like anything anymore. All right, I have some more art we're going to look at later, but for a specific reason. For now, here, that can join us till I need the board. Actually, no, we're going to keep it that way. Sorry, we're done at 2. Okay. Every new school year, it takes me a while to get used to what time I'm supposed to operate under. Let us take a look at our questions, our reading questions on page 1. And the first one we talked about last week. Why is it not completely accurate to say that the Roman Empire fell in 476? Yeah, Elliot.
Because the eastern side of the empire is still around.
Because there was still a Roman Empire. There was still a Roman Empire for 1,000 years. And we are not going to talk about everything that happened in 1,000 years this week. Just so you can breathe a sigh of relief. We're not going to run through 1,000 years. We're just going to hit a couple of highlights. But I hope I won't leave you with the impression that the couple of things we talk about are the only things that happened in 1,000 years over there. This is not true. But we have to pick and choose because we only have a certain amount of time. So one of the most important emperors, he was emperor in the 500s. So we have Rome fell in 476. That's what they always say because that's when a German guy called himself King of Italy. But in the 500s, there was an emperor named Justinian. And this is the next question I asked you. What was Justinian's most important work? Dorothy Mills actually says most importantly or something like that. She uses a phrase like that. Yeah, Gus.
The Code of Law.
Code of Law. So, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move Mary and Jesus and our art of the week because I need the board. Rome, the traditional year that Rome was founded, you do not have to write this down, by the way, is 753 BC. All right? And let's say, I told you Justinian was living in the 500s. Let's just put the year 520 AD for Justinian. So this is BC, and this is AD. So what do I need to do to these two numbers to find out how long it's been from the founding of Rome up to when Justinian was living? Do I need to add them or subtract them? This is this many years before Christ, and then this many years after. And I want to know how long it's been since Rome was founded up to when Justinian was living. Do I want to add or subtract? I want to add. Because I have this many years before plus this many years after. Does that make sense? So if I add them, I get a 3 and a 7 and a 12. 1,273 years. That's a really long time. And that's how long Rome and the Roman Empire, not the empire, but Rome itself has been going on. That's a lot of laws. 1,200 years worth of laws. And some laws said, you can do this, and then another law says you can't do that. It was all mixed up. And no one had sat down and said, okay, in this place is a collection of all the laws that the Roman Empire is run by. And Justinian said, we need to do that. If you don't know what the law is, what might happen? It's really easy to break it, isn't it? What if you didn't know what any of the speed limits were? There were no speed limit signs. Can you imagine what it would be like to drive around? Oh, well, but would there be tickets if there's no speed limits? It would just be the Autobahn, except for the old people like me that want to drive slowly, and then we'd be hit from behind repeatedly. It would be awful. It would be awful. So we need laws. Justinian said we need to collect the laws. Now this isn't a very flashy thing to talk about. It's not exciting. He did some exciting things that we're going to talk about in a minute, but that collection of laws that he put together, it passed into the West, and it was the basis for law schools till the 1800s in Europe. If you went to law school to be a lawyer in all of European medieval history, you studied Justinian's law code. It was the law code. It was a pretty important thing he did. He did some other much more fun things. First of all, the next question, what is the name of the magnificent Byzantine church built by Justinian?
Sancta Sophia.
The Sancta Sophia, which once again I have a picture of, a lovely picture of, and I forgot to go dig it out of my file box, and I'm not going to make you all sit here and wait while I do it. There is actually a picture, maybe in your book. It is in my book. It looks like this. It's not a very good picture because it's black and white. It's got a huge dome, and if this picture's in your book, you see this little line here? It's windows. It's a line of windows all the way around the dome to let the light in, because no electric lights. And apparently it was a beautiful space. It's still there, and when eventually the people that we're going to read about next week took over that part of the world, and they turned it into a church for themselves. And then it was a museum for a while, and now it's been turned back into a church for that particular group of people. So it's called the Sancta Sophia, or sometimes they call it the Hagia Sophia. They mean the same thing, actually. These words mean the same thing. They both mean holy. This means it in Latin, and this means it in Greek. And does anybody know what Sophia means? It's a name. I mean, we name people Sophia, but it actually is a Greek word. It means something. It means wisdom. It means wisdom. So it's the Church of Holy Wisdom, is what they call it. So Justinian pioneered that. Now, here's what I didn't ask you about. In the time of Justinian and the Roman Empire, nobody in the Roman Empire could make silk clothing. If you wanted silk clothing, which is very nice, not fake silk, real silk, very nice. Got to be careful with it. Can't put it in the washing machine, but it's very nice. They didn't know how to make silk. So they had to buy it from the people who knew how. And they were in China. China's a long way away. It costs a lot to get silk clothing. By the way, where does silk come from? Where do we get silk from?
Silkworms.
Silkworms. Caterpillars make it. They spin it. And so you can see why it's rather expensive. But nobody knew this. And so does anybody remember, I didn't ask you this question, so you didn't write it down, but does it stick in anybody's mind? How did Justinian get his hands on the secret to silk?
I think they when they were there, they took one of the worms and started their own factory.
He sent some ambassadors to say, hey, to the Chinese, but also to steal some, find out how do they make that silk. And they nabbed some and brought them back. Unclear how they kept them alive. Because they just eat plants. I never really thought about it. They had a little cage. But they got back and they started their own silk manufacturing operation. And now people could buy silk in Constantinople. Which you can, how do you feel the Chinese felt about that? Can you imagine? What do you think they thought? What happened? Why would that be bad for China? They lose money. They thought, oh shoot, we're just not going to make as much money on silk anymore. So this is another thing Justinian did. Justinian sent a general to go back and take back North Africa from the Germans, from the Vandals, and to take back parts of Italy. So he was busy with wars. He also was busy with a sports problem, a serious sports problem. And it was this. Do you guys have a favorite sport? Do some of you have a favorite sport? Do you ever go to a live game? Like a major league game, right? And how do the fans, if you've been to a major league football, baseball game, are people excited to be there?
Yeah.
Are they excited when their team does something good? Are they upset when the other team does something good? Yes, yes. They wear special clothes to show which side they're rooting. Oh, yes, yes. This is not new. Back in Constantinople, people had favorite teams too, but they were chariot racing teams. They had a big arena called the Hippodrome, which literally means the place where horses run. And they would race chariots around. And there were 4 teams. But eventually the 4 teams coalesced into 2, the greens and the blues. And everybody was a fan of the greens or the blues. Took this very seriously. So, one day, there was a bar fight. When you drink too much, these things happen. There was a bar fight, and one of the participants in the fight was the main chariot driver for one of the teams. And he got arrested and put in prison, and he wasn't going to be able to drive for the next race. So his fans were just a little angry. Actually, they were more than a little angry. They rioted in the streets. They rioted because their favorite chariot driver was in prison because of the bar fight. And after a while, the greens and the blues stopped fighting each other and they banded together and they said, we're all just mad at Justinian because he put that guy in prison. How dare he mess with our sporting events? Let's just take over the empire. It was awful. And they ran through the streets as people do when they riot, smashing things and yelling and whatnot. And they were yelling a Greek word, Nika. Nika, which it's a command. It means conquer, conquer. We're going to win. We're going to win. Nika, Nika. They call it the Nika riot because they were running around yelling Nika. They actually found a guy who was related to Justinian, and they said, you want to be the next emperor? And he really didn't have an option because they had weapons, you know. So he said yes, very wisely. And they took him into the Hippodrome, and they crowned him king, and Justinian's back in his palace. He says, this is really bad. This is really, really, really bad. We're all going to die. They're taking over the government. And fortunately, his palace was backed up to where the water was, where the ocean was. And there was a little dock there. And he says, I'm getting on a boat and I'm hightailing it out of here before they nab me. Are y'all with me? And he was ready to run for it. But he had a wife named Theodora. She used to be a dancer and an actress, which was just very low class. But Justinian married her anyway. And this day, it was good that he did. Because a historian of the Byzantine Empire told us about this. And he said, this is part of what she told him that day. It has been said, she declared, that the voice of a woman should not be heard among the councils of men. But those whose interests are concerned have a right to speak. Death is inevitable and will come to us all. But no one is compelled to submit to the shame of surviving dignity and honor, of leaving empire for exile. If you wish to lengthen your life, O Emperor, flight is easy. You have ships and there's the sea. But think well whether after you have escaped safely into exile, you will not wish every day that you were dead. Do you really want to have been emperor and then go live in a shack somewhere? I don't think so. Fight it out. He listened to her. He listened to her. And he sent his general, Belisarius, the guy who he had sent to recapture Africa and Italy and everything. Unfortunately, Belisarius was very good at his job. It was not so good for the people in the Hippodrome, because Belisarius stationed soldiers all around at every exit, and then they went in and they killed 30,000 people. That's a lot of people. But they stopped the riot at a tremendous cost. So Justinian's reign was just things happening all the time. But there was something else happening, two things happening that are related to each other, I guess, that he would have had no control over. I'm going to read you something out of this history book. In 535, while Justinian was emperor, Krakatoa erupted. Does anybody, well, the word erupted probably tipped you off. Anyone would take a guess what Krakatoa is? It's a volcano. It's in Indonesia. It's erupted several times in history, and when it erupts, it's a boomer. It's big. It erupted in 535. Listen to this. The explosion hurled pieces of the mountain through the air to land as far as 7 miles away. Parts of the mountain blew 7 miles away. Tons of ash and vaporized salt water exploded upwards into the air, forming a plume perhaps 30 miles high. The land around the volcano collapsed inward, forming a cauldron of rushing seawater 30 miles across. This was huge. And as you might guess, it had a huge effect on everybody around and the atmosphere when you shoot up that much dust and ash and whatnot. It says they have records back to that time. One historian says yellow dust rained down like snow. A guy in Syria says the sun was dark and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, and still this light was only a feeble shadow. The fruits did not ripen, and the wine tasted like sour grapes. The ash from the explosion was spreading across the sky, blocking the sun's heat. In Antarctica and Greenland, acid snow began to fall and continued to blanket the ice for 4 years. It goes on. Letters from Rome, all the way in Rome. It says tree ring dating from data as far away as Chile, California, and Siberia show a drop in growth. It affected the whole world. When I was a little girl, I lived in Alaska for a while, and a volcano erupted while I lived there one Sunday morning. And I went out, we were going to church, and there was this really weird greeny blue cloud in the sky. I thought Jesus was coming back because we were going to church. Anyway, we went out, and then my parents got on the news, and they found out that about 150 miles away, a volcano had erupted. Pretty minor volcano. But we went to church, and then when we came out, the ash was falling on my town. It was like snow, only it was brown. And they told us that if you were not well, if you had respiratory, like asthma, something like that, you shouldn't go outside and breathe that. This was just a little one. And it was dark, just like a bad snowstorm. Only it was volcanic ash. I can't do it for 4 years. Now, What happens, guys, when plants can't grow very well? What happens next? People get hungry because they don't have enough to eat. And when people don't have enough to eat, what sometimes happens to them? I mean, they die, obviously, but I don't mean that little to eat. When people just aren't eating well, they'll get sick. They'll get sick. Or if something's going around, you catch it more easily, right? Keep that in mind, because this is the other thing that happened while Justinian was emperor after Krakatoa. So a ship came in bringing much needed grain, but not long after the ship threw down its anchor, a sickness began to spread along the waterfront. It was an illness known to the ancients, but new to the people of Constantinople. Sudden fever, swellings, coma, and death. It was the plague. The sickness burned through the city at full force for 3 entire months. That same historian that tells us about it being dark, he says, the tale of dead reached 5,000 each day, and then came to 10,000 each day, and still more than that. Poor Justinian. He's got Krakatoa, and he's running out of food, and he's got plague, and he's got riots, and he's got generals off trying to reconquer the world, plus he's got the whole silkworm thing in the law code. This is why we spend a lot of time talking about Justinian. His reign is a very lively time in the East. Not every emperor had such a lively reign. So he's one of the benchmarks that we're looking at today, Justinian. Another is, unfortunately, another riot. This riot is going to go on for a while. This is the next question I asked you. What great controversy broke out in the Eastern Church in the 8th century? Somebody remind me, what years are the 8th century? The 700s. What did people start fighting about in the 700s in the East? You want to do it, Gus?
Like use of like statues and pictures.
Okay, statues and pictures, particularly where?
In the church.
In the church. So for years, from very, very early in church history, they'd had pictures in churches. We've dug up churches from the 100s, 200, and there were pictures. And but the East and the West had kind of different ways they decorated their churches. In the West, they had started putting statues and some artwork in. At the very early church, they didn't use statues at all because they were afraid it would remind people of pagan statues. But after a while, nobody was worshiping pagan statues anymore, and they decided, you know what, there's no harm here. In the East, they just did pictures, and those pictures are called icons. They're not just pictures. And so Eastern churches today are decorated with these icons, and they're a bit like this. This isn't an icon, but they're not meant to look real. They're meant to be sort of representations of an idea. And they have icons of saints and whatnot. Well, anyway, they had these in the churches, and an emperor came to the throne and he said, I think this is terrible. We're ripping out all of the icons. We're ripping everything out of the church, all the decorations. Now, I'm sure we all go to different types of churches here, but I'm guessing that in everybody's church, there's some sort of decoration of some sort. Like, is there carpet maybe in your church, or is there a picture anywhere in your church? Maybe not even in the sanctuary, or maybe there's a cross, in the sanctuary or something like this. And so imagine how you would feel if someone came in and said, that's evil and wicked and we're ripping it all out. You can't have a cross on the steeple of your church. Carpet is evil and bad. We're taking out all these pews, whatever it is your church is decorated with. And by the way, you've been using that for hundreds of years. It had been in your church. That's how they felt in the East. And people, once again, rioted in the streets. They said, you can't take away our icons. I will show you a couple of examples. My son actually found these at Goodwill in Chicago. It's awesome. This is an icon of the Transfiguration. So this is supposed to represent the event. And you know what I mean? This is when Jesus and Peter, James, and John went up on the mountain, and Jesus was transformed, and his clothes glowed like light. And Peter, James, and John, they're down here falling down on their faces, and then Peter is babbling silly stuff about, let's build you a tent or something. And so we have up here Moses and Elijah, and they're actually labeled the law, the prophets in Greek. And here we have Jesus coming up the mountain with his three, and then he's on the mountain, transfigured, and they're falling on their faces. And then they're going back down, and he's saying, don't tell anybody about this. So you see, it's not meant to be literal because it's more, Jesus appears 3 times. And so it's the event of the Transfiguration. This is the baptism of Jesus. And you know, think, okay, there's a lot of weird stuff going on here. First of all, there's an axe. And there's a little bush here, and there's an axe laying in it. And you might think, what, has John got a side gig chopping down trees? No. You might remember John said the axe is laid at the root of the trees, and every tree that does not bear good fruit will be put. And that shows us that reminds us. John said the axe is laid at the root of the trees. And then Jesus is here, and sometimes there's a little like water guy. He's there with a vase, pouring out what's going on. And it's meant to show that Jesus is blessing the waters. When he steps in, the church says, hey, you know, when we get in water, it cleans us up. But when Jesus gets in water, he cleans the water up. He makes the water holy. So it's not supposed to be literally, this is like a snapshot of what it looked like. It's representative. Anyway, these are a couple, this is an example of icons. This is what they were fighting about. These were hanging in churches in the East. And so the Eastern Church asked the Pope in the West, and they asked some of the church people in the West, what do you think about this? And the West, they're like, no, it's fine. Images are okay. It's okay to have these in churches. But a guy we're going to read about in a few weeks, he was in charge of the Franks, and his name was Charlemagne. He didn't like it one bit. He wrote a book about it. This argument went on for decades. A lot of people lost their jobs. So the guy who was in charge of the church in Constantinople, the patriarch, if he liked icons, the emperor said, you're out. And they drove him into exile, and he hired someone for that job that he wanted. This went on and on and on and on. And eventually they all agreed. They said, yeah, it's fine. We'll have the icons in the church again. But it was a huge controversy. But the reason I bring it up at such length is because I don't really think we're going to cover this in this book, or barely. This is the only day all year I think that we're going to spend in the East, and the whole rest is in the West. But you might have noticed that there in town here, there's some Eastern churches, Greek Orthodox churches. There's St. George and Assumption. There's several others. And you might think, well, why are there so many churches? What's the deal with the churches? We'll talk a little bit about Western church history next semester. But for a long time, I guess I don't really want to write that up there, there was just one church, right? It was just one church. But more and more the East and the West started disagreeing about things. Charlemagne didn't like the icons, and there were other issues. And finally in 1054, in the year 1054, they split. And now there's an Eastern church and a Western church, and it's been that way for 1,000 years. So most people in the West don't know much about the Eastern churches. Most people in the East don't know a lot about the Western churches. They don't cross paths very well. But that's the second big event in the East that I wanted to talk about. And it was really the last time that the East sent to the West and said, what do you think about this? And the West gave them an answer, because eventually they stopped asking. They stopped communicating. Also, a lot of people in Europe forgot how to read and speak Greek. They couldn't do it anymore. They forgot how, and so they couldn't really talk to each other or read each other's books anymore. Okay, last question I asked you. How did the existence of the Eastern Empire benefit the West? What was good about it being there? What do you think, Gus?
They gave the West protection from invaders from Asia, so it gave them time to rebuild.
The West was in bad shape after all those German tribes came through, and this is the map that's in the back of on page 81, and you see here's the Eastern Empire. All these invaders kept coming from this direction, out of the east, and here was this empire with a strong army and soldiers, and it was a barrier, and it helped give Europe a little bit of breathing space so they could put things back together. So these monks that we talked about last week in their monasteries could copy those books down and help rebuild civilization. But over time, and this links into what you're going to read about for next week, that empire got smaller and smaller and smaller. Let me see if I put another map back here. Just a second. Oh, yeah. Everybody look on page 83. Look at the map on page 83. Some of it doesn't mean anything to you, the Holy Roman Empire and whatnot. See if you can find the Byzantine Empire. See if you can find it. If you can find Italy, Italy is the boot that sticks down, you know, and then look to the right of Italy, and you'll see polka dots, and the polka dots are the Byzantine Empire. That's it. By the year 1300. 800 years later, 800 years after the first one. That's what happened. It just got swallowed up and swallowed up and swallowed up by this group and that group until in 1453, Constantinople itself got conquered and it was over. It was over. But for those hundreds of years, they protected Europe. All right. Next week, you're going to read about the group of people who started eating away at that empire. In chapter 4 of Dorothy Mills, I want you to read chapter 4, which, if you ever can't remember, which thing am I supposed to read? It's the next thing, week 2. This is the book of the Middle Ages, chapter 4, and answer the questions. And we will hear about this group of people and how they started eating up the Byzantine Empire. Excellent. Tell me about your papers. Was that a really, really easy paper to write?
Yes.
All right. It's not bad to have an easy paper to write. Does anybody argue that it's bad to have it? No. Because it means you succeed. The very first one is going to be a good paper. I'm sure all your papers are going to be great. We're actually going to do basically the same thing, but we're going to add a little something to it, okay? So the assignment, we're going to make our outline together and everything. But we're going to add something to it to make it a little hard, but not very much, right? Just a little bit hard. So if you thought it was easy, this is not bad. I need you, this time I don't have an outline for you. So I need you to either get a piece of paper out or turn to a blank page in the book, like page 4 is empty. Either way. And I'm sorry, can you write on your lap, we have more of us here than I realized we were going to have, and I had pictures all around the table, and there were more than that, but as long as everybody can write, if you want to plop down on the floor, it's okay, I'll move things. But find a blank page, and then I am going to read to you from page 6. This is a guy I mentioned last week, and I told you we'd revisit him, St. Columba. St. Columba was a monk, and I love St. Columba because St. Columba loved books. I love books too. I get St. Columba. He lived in Ireland, and this is a story about something he did with a book. And I'm going to read it, and then we're going to outline it together. Columba was known for constant study and prayer. Really, really constant. He is said to have written 300 books, by hand, of course, continuing to transcribe up to the night before he died. Finian and Columba got into a disagreement over a psalter. Does anybody know what a psalter is? It doesn't have salt in it. Is there another word that starts with a PS, but we don't pronounce the P? What is there a word that it reminds you of? A popular word that starts with a PS, but we don't say ps. Psalms. Psalms starts with P. A psalter is a book that just has the Psalms in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just a collection of the Psalms. Just like sometimes you have a book that's just the New Testament. It's not the whole Bible. This is just the Psalms. All right. According to one longer version of the story, it was the Vulgate, the Latin translation of the Bible, and the first copy of it to reach Ireland, which would make it a pretty appealing piece of literature. So we don't know. It was a Bible or it was just a psalter. Columba borrowed the manuscript from Finian, possibly without permission, and secretly copied it with the intention of keeping it for his own use. But Finian said no, that this was theft, illegal copying. He demanded that Columba hand over the copy he had made. Finian took the matter to King, I will now mispronounce this king's name, Diarmait mac Cerbhal, because you never pronounce Irish names the way they look, the High King of Ireland, for arbitration, means to get a judgment. Believing he had done nothing wrong in his attempt to spread the word of the church, Columba agreed. I don't think that chicken likes that Columba copied that book one bit. It didn't hurt his expectations that Diarmait was a relative of Columba's. Why do you think Columba was very willing to go to the king for judgment if the king is his relative?
Give him the book.
Yeah, because the king's my cousin. He'll agree with me. I'm so going to win this case. Finian's argument was simple. It's my book. You can't copy it. He felt that if anyone was going to copy it, it should be done through certain procedures and certainly not in secret under his own roof. Columba's response was not all that different from those in favor of less restriction and digital duplication, that the book had not suffered by his copying. It is not right, he said, that the divine words in that book should perish, or that I or any other should be hindered from writing them, or reading them, or spreading them among the tribes. In his closing address, he told the court that those who owned the knowledge through books were obligated to spread the knowledge by copying and sharing them. He felt that to not share knowledge was a far greater offense than to copy a book that lost nothing by being copied. But the king ruled in Finian's favor, famously saying, "To every cow belongs its calf, to every book its copy." In other words, every copy of a book belonged to the owner of the original book. Of course, the story didn't end there. After more arguing and Columba's next offense, which was harboring a fugitive, the result was a battle, the death of 3,000 people, and Columba's exile. That's a bummer. Do you ever you guys, I was going to put a movie in. Now you just stream things. Do you still have a DVD player?
Yes.
Do you still have a VHS player?
No.
Do you know what a VHS player is? I'm so old. When you start a movie, sometimes there's an FBI warning at the beginning. Do you know what I'm talking about? And what is the FBI warning you not to do? Don't make a copy of this. You can't copy this movie. Now, I don't think they're going to bust down your door and investigate and see if you just have a copy in your house. But it's a big, big, big no-no to make a copy and sell it. That's how they find out you're doing it, right? Back in the VHS days, those of you who know, we would, copy things, tape it off TV, right? You'd have a copy. But they didn't try to sell it. And Does anybody know what a copyright is? What is a copyright?
When you steal, like, someone else's.
Wait, it's not the stealing of it, it's the thing that keeps you from stealing it. For example, let me look in this book. Go ahead. It's owning it. It's owning a writing. So everybody, it says right here, you'll have to take my word for it, but it says copyright, and then there's a little symbol like this. Copyright, and the symbol, and then 2000 by Susan Wise Bauer, who's the author of this book. She copyrighted this book. So here's what I can't do. I can't take it to a scanner and scan a bunch of pages, scan the whole book, and then sell it. I'm not even supposed to hand it out to large numbers of people. Often inside it'll say, copyright except for limited use in schools. You know, it's not phrased like that, but it'll say, teachers can make copies of this for a limited number of students or within your own family, that sort of thing. But other than that, it's illegal to make the copies. It's copyrighted. My daughter actually wrote a play for junior theaters, and they produced it in Dubuque this summer. And she sent it off to get it copyrighted. So today, to do that, you send the thing you've written to the government, and they look it over, and then you have to pay them money, because often you have to pay the government money for things. And they issue you a copyright, and they say, now no one else can make copies of this or sell it or do anything without your permission. This is kind of what happened with Finian and Columba, except it's kind of weird because they had to write everything out by hand. To make a copy, you had to sit down and write them all out. Would anyone like to guess? I have no answer, by the way, so you can't really be wrong. How long do you think it would take to copy out, let's just say all the Psalms, the whole book of Psalms? Just to sit down with a pen and a paper and write out all the Psalms. Obviously, it depends on how fast you write or how neat you want to be. I'm assuming if you want to make your own personal copy of a book, you want it to be neat enough that it looks nice and you can read it again. I have no idea how many hours that would take. I've always been kind of curious. I'd like to get some pen and paper and just start copying out the Bible, like for X number of minutes a day, and see how long it takes me to make a physical copy, but I haven't done this yet. If any of you decides to write out some song, you'll have to tell me. This was a lot of effort that Columba invested. But did Finian know about it? No. He snuck the book off to his room and made a copy. All right, let's retell this story together. Let's make a outline. I'm only going to make the first paragraph here because this is what I've got room for, right? But just like last week, we're going to make a Roman numeral 1, and then let's put just 4 points. I think that's enough. Do you need paper, Gianna? No. Okay. Or you can just use a blank place in your reading guide. I'm just going to wait till everybody gets their stuff together. So in our first paragraph about St. Patrick, what did we talk about in the first paragraph? What did we give information about? Do you remember? The person. What's the fancy name for people in a story? Characters. The characters and where and when they live. What do we call it? What's the fancy name for that? The setting. The characters and the setting. Can somebody tell me somebody who's in this story? St. Columba. That's a pretty easy one because it's called St. Columba in the book. I will spot you the saint. We'll just call it St. Columba, one word. I'm sorry, Gianna. I'm going to just be right in your way, aren't I? I'll try to come around. All right, I'll move after I write, okay? This is the downside of this circle. I told, maybe you weren't all here, my husband says we're going to get a sectional couch. And then maybe y'all can sit on that, and then I can stand over there, and everybody can see better. Except then the moms can't see. Moms and grandmas and family members can't see. What kind of person does St. Columba seem to be to you? If you had to describe him with an adjective, how would you describe him? What kind of character traits does he seem to have?
Arrogant.
And why do you think so?
He wouldn't let it go when he said he couldn't copy it.
Okay. Arrogant? Perhaps. He certainly didn't think he needed to ask permission. Does it sound like Finian would have given him permission if he had asked? Well, was Finian mad that he copied the book, or mad that he did it in secret without permission? I guess we're not sure, are we? I'd like to think that Finian would have said, sure, you can make a copy. Thank you for asking me. But to think you don't even have to ask for permission, that's kind of arrogant. Any other character traits that you see in Columba? What sort of person stays up at night copying a book for their own use and then just, like I said, won't let it go? What do we? Oh, that is a negative way to say what I was thinking. What do we usually use greedy to mean? What do we usually want when we're greedy? If we say somebody is greedy, what do they want, usually?
More of something.
More of what in particular?
Stuff.
Is it stuff like material possessions or money or something like that? So I don't know if this falls in the greedy category. Is there a that desire to have this book, is there a way we could spin it around and make it sound like something good? We've already called him arrogant. I'd kind of like to find something nice to say about him. What do we call someone who's got a goal and they just really follow through and they see it through? What do you think?
Determined.
I think he's very determined to have this book. And is determined usually a good thing or a bad thing?
Could be both.
It kind of could be. It depends on what you're determined to do. If I'm determined to run out in traffic, that doesn't seem like a good thing. But it usually sounds good. Well, so that's maybe neutral, but let's say he's a very determined man. I'll tell you another story about Columba in his exile that shows his determination after we get done here. So St. Columba, what's a really, really important thing about him that is key to the plot of this story? What's another character trait he has? It tells us at the beginning of this story. It says Columba was known for constant study and prayer, really, really constant. He is said to have written 300 books by hand. What does Columba love? Books and knowledge. He loves books and knowledge. This is not a trick question, but I think it's a pretty easy question. Is there any way to say in 3 words he loves books and knowledge?
Those 3 words.
Loves books and knowledge. All right, that balances a little bit. Maybe arrogant. Maybe determined, for better or for worse. But I can't be mad at somebody who loves books and knowledge somehow. Who else is in this story? Finian. And who is Finian? Who does Finian appear to be? We're not really told, but did Columba already know him, do you think?
Yeah.
So, would we call him a friend? Finian, he's a friend of Columba's. What kind of man is Finian? He also seems rather determined to me, but we've already used determined. Oh. You know, back when books all were written out by hand, did most people have lots of books? No, no. Who would have books like this? What kind of person would have books like this that Columba could copy in his own house? Rich. Finian is a friend, and he's wealthy enough to have books. I wonder how many books each of us has in our houses. I bet every single one of us has more books in our house than the finest library at that time would have had. The private library, you know, in someone's home. If you had one bookshelf of books, oh my goodness. We're so fortunate. We're so blessed to live at a time when books are cheap and printed. Okay. Where do these people live? What is the setting? They live in Ireland. Do we hear anything? We know they live in Ireland. When, it doesn't really say. So we can't say a when, not from this story. I'm just going to leave that. Ireland is the setting. And is there anybody else in this story? The king. Here, can I, if you've already written that, just do that. He's the High King. And his name is Dr. Mate, although I can almost guarantee that is not how you're supposed to pronounce that. All right. Do we have characters? Yes, check. Do we have a setting? Such as it is. We might have to embellish. Maybe we want to say there were lush green hills of Ireland or something like that, but we really don't know much else about the story. All right, I'm going to wait. Sorry, Gianna. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Does everybody have this? All right, I'm going to make the words go away. And then let's do the second paragraph. What do we talk about in the second paragraph of our stories? What's going to be the subject of our paragraph? Does anybody remember from the St. Patrick one? The conflict. What happens? Because remember, a story with no conflict is just a snooze fest. Nobody wants a story with no conflict. So, we ask ourselves, what do these people want? What do they need? What do they do to get it? So, what's the main thing that somebody wants that causes conflict? Yes, and who wants the book? Columba? Can we think of a way with 3 words to remind ourselves that Columba wants a book? Columba wants book. Columba wants book. If you want to, instead of book, you can say Psalter or Bible, or just book is fine. And so what does he do to get it? He steals it. What, steals and copies. Do we want to call it stealing? We can call it stealing. Usually, do you think he was going to give it back? Yeah. Oh yeah. But borrowing without permission just isn't really something we want to encourage, is it? All right, we'll say he steals. He steals it, and then does what? He copies. And does anybody know he's doing this? So what do? Secretly. I like it. Secretly. You're allowed to say, Mrs. Ferguson, move.
I'm a slow rider.
What?
I'm a slow rider.
Oh, it's okay. All right. We didn't really say that it's Finian's book, but I think we'll probably remember this. How does Finian... Okay, what happens next? Actually, let's ask this. Because at this point, would there be a conflict? Well, if it just stayed like this. He secretly copied it and put it back and no one ever found out. The end. Finian finds out. Could I say in 3 words, Finian finds out? I know. Finian finds out. And how does Finian feel about this? Finian upset. And what's he plan to do? Yeah, he was going to take the copy. What else does he want to do? Yeah, arrest him. What? Yeah, let's do that in the last bit. Report him. Okay, so Finian is, let's put some of these things down. Finian is angry. Okay, Finian is angry, and you said earlier, what does he want to do with the copy? Or what does he do with the copy? Takes the copy. Now, I like that last thing you said. He wants to arrest him. He wants to, what did you say, report? Somebody said report him. He wants to report it, and he wants to arrest him. When you want to have somebody arrested, why do you want to arrest them? I mean, what do you want ultimately to happen to them? I want some... Punish, yes. Well, but by jail, yes. So he wants to, okay, let's see if we can remember what I just said. He wants to report him, arrest him, punish him. You're not looking like such good friends anymore, I feel like. I was going to ask you what you would feel like if your friend did this to you, but I can't think of the equivalent of borrowing something without permission to make a copy of it and then give you back the original that would upset you. I don't have anything like that anymore. What kind of conflict is this? Is this man against nature? Is somebody fighting against nature in this story? No. Somebody fighting against themselves? No. Not really. They're both pretty determined, right? So we have 2 people fighting, don't we? All right, does everybody have that down? Yeah. Oh, we're down at 2. Oh, okay. We need to, because I want to get to the Arabian Nights, because we read my favorite part of the Arabian Nights this week. All right. What do we talk about in the 3rd paragraph? The resolution. How does this all work out? Do they duel to the death? Does Columba go to prison for the rest of his life? Is this a capital offense? We don't know. All right. So, what does Finian? We said he wanted to report him, arrest him, have him punished. What are they going to do about this case? Who are they going to consult? Take it to the king. Take it to the king. That's 5 words. Can we trim it down to 3? Take to king. We could say, take case, king. There isn't one right answer for our 3 words. Any 3 words that make us remember what's happening in the story are good. And Ms. Columba say, no way, I don't want to take my case to the king. I'm scared of the king. No. What is Columba's reaction? Yeah. So Columba does what? He agrees. Columba agrees. What's Finian's, oh, here, I'm going too fast. I'm sorry. I do that. I'll let you write. What's Finian's argument? Why does he think this is a bad thing? What, just in your own words, what is Finian, what is his case?
He wrote it, and Columba tried to copy it without even asking his permission.
Okay, so ultimately, whose book is this original? Finian's. And if it's mine, other people can't have it. Does that make sense? So Finian, I'm going to put, you know what? I'm going to cheat a little bit by putting an F like that. This is what Finian has to say. Can we think of 3 words that sum up how Finian feels about this situation? Well, yes, he's confident, but what is he saying to the king? What is the situation? He says, it's my book and other people can't copy it. But somehow I'd like to remind myself of that in 3 words. This is the hard part. It has 2 halves, doesn't it? The first half is, it's my book. What's the second half? No copies. It's my book, no copies. Unfortunately, that's 4 words. My book, no copies. Is there a way we could get it down to 3?
Well, last week, instead of saying no, you just did a circle.
Last week, instead of saying no, I did a circle. What if my book no copies? It's my book, and there can't be copies, not without my permission. That's Finian's argument. What is Columba's argument? What does he say? Why does he say this is okay? Why should he be allowed to do this? Don't worry about the 3 words right now, just in any number of words. Why does Columba say he should be allowed to do this?
All books need a copy.
Why?
So it doesn't get destroyed or lost.
Okay, and ultimately, why do we care if books get destroyed or lost?
If you lose the information.
Because everybody's got a right to that information, especially if it's the Bible or the Psalms. Won't we want to spread that around? We don't want to just hoard it and keep it for ourselves, right? So Columbus says people should have a right to read this. You can't just hoard knowledge. Okay, so that's what his argument is. Now comes the hard part. Is there a way we can sum that up in 3 words to remind ourselves? What seemed to be an important word we just used right now that I just used? Knowledge seemed to be important. Knowledge, and what did we say about, what's something important we said about knowledge?
Everyone deserves to have it.
Shared knowledge. Shared knowledge is what?
Important.
Shared knowledge important? I like that. Everyone deserves, when you say everyone deserves, I like that everyone deserves knowledge too. That's also equally good. Remember, there's no right answer here. Do we like shared knowledge good or everyone deserves knowledge? Take a vote. We can be a democracy very briefly. Shared knowledge good? Everyone deserves knowledge. Which one? I literally want you to tell me which one you like best. Everyone deserves knowledge. Do we all like that one? Okay. Everyone deserves. I'm going to write it underneath just because I can't reach all the way over there, and knowledge is kind of a long word. All right, that's what Finian argues. That's what Columba argues. How does the story end? We're going to ignore the part about the battle that kills 3,000 people and going into exile, although I will tell you more about that in a minute. But let's just stick with the book story. How does it end? The king rules in Finian's favor. How can we sum that up in 3 words? King does what? King likes Finian. King agrees Finian. King rules Finian wins argument. You know, all of these are really, really good. No one right answer. Finian wins argument is the last thing I heard, so that's the thing I'm going to write down. But all of those are fine. Finian wins the argument. He gets his book back, and he gets the copy. And this is known as the first copyright case in history. Where somebody complained that somebody made an unauthorized illegal copy of something I owned. All right, what I want you to do is just retell this story. You may embellish, but remember it's a historical story, so they can't show up in a Porsche, you know, or flying in their airplane or something. You know, that won't work. And I told you that I wanted you to add something this time. You're going to want to write this down too. Can I erase this? Is everybody done with this? Okay, so I need more room. I would like you to add something to your paper that really spices up our writing. Actually, I'm going to tell you something, if I should tell you this or not, but I think I will. We're going to learn a technique that just is really, really highly appealing to readers. When you do this in your papers, it makes your writing sound really good. So the thing I said I was maybe not going to tell you is this. My husband read, or he watched a video maybe, on how to recognize AI writing. By the way, don't do it. Don't do it. I want to hear what you say, not what something generates. But the thing I'm going to teach you is something apparently pops up in AI writing, because AI knows this sounds so good. So my husband said, oh, this is a way to recognize AI writing. I said, well, too bad, because I teach my students to do this already, because it sounds good. So this will not help me to identify AI writing. It is called parallelism. That's its fancy name. What does parallel mean? What are parallel lines? What do they never do? They never touch. They're like train tracks, right? The rails of a train, that'd be not good for the train if they crossed, right? They're always parallel. So this is using words in parallel together. And you might say, what does that mean? It means this. This is the definition of it. 3 words of the same kind, I'll tell you what that means in a minute, in a sentence. Okay, what do I mean by the same kind? I mean the same part of speech. For example, adjectives. Can anyone, you've got your outline in front of there. What were some of the adjectives that we described St. Columba? We said he was what? Arrogant, determined. Can we think of one more adjective? Because it says 3. Smart. I could say St. Columba was smart and determined but arrogant. I'm going to put it that way because I feel like the smart and determined are good and the arrogant is bad. It just makes you sound really smart when you use 3 of them. I don't know why. People, when they read your writing, they like to hear 3s. We just like 3s. But you don't want to say St. Columba was arrogant, determined, and really good at writing. That's not in parallel. They're not all the same kind of word. They all have to be the same kind. Let's do it with verbs. I think we actually did this already. This is going to be really easy because I think we did it on our outlines. Columba did what to the book? Columba stole, copied, and can we do one more verb? Then what do you think what might he do next? We just need a 3rd verb. Okay, Columbus stole, copied, and argued about the book. And 3 verbs. We could do 3 adverbs. What is an adverb?
It's a word that describes the verb.
It's a word that describes it. Can you give me an example? We actually included one in our outline. It usually answers the word how you did something. Secretly. What if we could think of 2 more? How did Columba copy the book? He copied the book secretly. How else? Is it messy? Slowly and carefully. And we got it. We could do it with nouns. In Ireland, there were not many books, libraries, or where's a place where you might find books and libraries? Towns, maybe? I was thinking schools, but anytime we use 3 words of the same part of speech, we did parallelism. Does that make sense to everybody? I want you to do it somewhere in your paper. You can do it in every paragraph if you want to just go wild with it. But one in your paper. And here's what I'd like you to do. I'm just picking up the paper that is on top. I'm not making a comment about this paper. This is. If you're, say you're writing and your parallelism is right here. In the margin on your paper, I'd just like you to put a P for parallelism. And then I will know, oh, did they do the parallelism? Yes, there it is. Don't underline it. Don't highlight it. Don't circle it. Then it all gets messy. All you got to do is put a P, and it's on this line, and I'll see. And if you do that for me, we're going to add more and more and more things as the school year goes on. And then I can just look down the side and make sure you did them all. And I can find them easily. But if you start circling them and highlighting them, then I'm not sure which one you think it is, right? But if you just label it there, it's perfect. That's all I want. Retell the story and give me parallelism somewhere in your story and mark it. Awesome. In the time we have left, I want to talk about the Arabian Nights. This is the library telling me that I have another book in that I ordered. And so we're just going to make that stop. I thought okay, just a second. Okay, I know what it is, and I will come. What kind of world does the Arabian Nights happen in? What is this world like? Can you describe it? It's very magical. Would you like to live in this world?
No.
Why not?
It's very gruesome.
Okay, A, it's gruesome. B, scary. What's scary about it?
Like the monsters.
Okay, I don't want huge, powerful genies popping out at me every month, especially ones that suddenly say, you were sitting there and throwing, date pits and you killed my son and now I'm going to chop off your head. What? And my son was invisible and apparently very small. Pits killed him? It's very odd. What would life be like if you never knew what was going to happen next?
Isn't that just normal life?
Well, that's a very good point, Gianna. We don't, any of us know what's going to happen next. But do we have a fairly good idea of things that aren't going to happen?
Yeah.
Probably. I'm thinking of, so the story where he killed the genie's son by throwing the pits. And then the 3 guys came up the next year, and remember each of them told a story and said, Genie, will you remit a third of the punishment if my story is good? And they start stories like this. Oh, Genie, you must know that this dog is my brother. Well, I didn't see that coming. "Oh, genie, you must know that this hind, which is a deer, is my wife." That's so there's a not knowing what's going to happen, and then there's a really, really, really not knowing what's going to happen. But Gianna's making me think of something. What would life be like if we knew everything that was going to happen next?
Dull.
Would it be comforting if you knew nothing bad was going to happen to you today?
Yeah.
Would you want to know?
No.
Are you the type, do your families let you open any Christmas presents early, or no? No. You don't ask. I know. I used to ask my dad. Like every year I thought he would relent, but it never happened. Can we just open one? No. So, if you thought somebody said magical, a genie might pop out at any moment and punish you for something you didn't know you even did, would you be comfortable? Would you be a nervous sort of person, or would you be a comfortable sort of person? I think I would be nervous all the time. I told you that you read my favorite part, and I will read it. Do you remember the pond that was actually a town that had 4 different colors of fish?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why I love this so much. Sometimes the words just pop into my head and I'm not even teaching this material. Okay, where are you? Okay. No, it's before that.
I think it's like page 60 something.
60, the Envious Man,
Was it
no.
one of the calendars?
Yeah, and I didn't think so, because they're the guys with, everybody's missing one eye. It was maybe if I look in the
It was the one where
Young King of the Black Isles. Yeah, because the guy was turned to marble, remember, from the waist down?
Yeah.
That was part of that. And there's a picture. Oh, here we go, here we go.
From the picture.
Yeah, okay. So here's my favorite part for whatever reason. The guy brought the fish to the king, right, to serve. And the cook is cooking the fish. I love it. The walls of the kitchen opened, and there came out a young and beautiful damsel. She was dressed in an Egyptian dress of flowered satin, and she wore earrings and a necklace of white pearls and bracelets of gold set with rubies, and she held a wand of myrtle in her hand. She went up to the pan, to the great astonishment of the cook, who stood motionless at the side of her. I guess so. She struck one of the fish with her rod. "Fish, fish," she said, "are you doing your duty?" The fish answered nothing, and then she repeated her question, whereupon they all raised their heads together and answered very distinctly, "Yes, yes. If you reckon, we reckon. If you pay your debts, we pay ours. If you fly, we conquer, and we are content." When they had spoken, the girl upset the pan, which means she dumped it out, entered the opening in the wall, which once closed, and appeared the same as before. They never in the whole story tell you what on earth that meant. And sometimes I just think, fish, fish, are you doing your duty? Just for no reason, because it just strikes me as so odd. This world is so very odd. Where heads, do you remember the guy whose head, if you trap it in the basket, it will talk to you and it will answer any question?
and the pages had poison on them.
It's horrifying, yes, and the pages had poison. What sorts of things do these people consider good or bad? Can you think of anyone who's praised for doing something good, or what makes someone good or someone bad in these stories? It's kind of a hard question, isn't it? And there were a lot of stories. Why did that king cut off that guy's head? Do you even remember?
Because the visitor said that he was actually hurting the queen.
Yeah, and was he?
No.
No, it was a big fat lie, wasn't it? The vizier. The vizier is like the prime minister. Why would he say such a thing? Why would he lie about that guy just to get rid of him?
This is jealous.
He's jealous. Because the vizier has a lot of power. So, in his eyes, knocking someone out of their position of authority was a bad thing. And being an authority is a good thing, having authority. Do genies have a lot of authority? Do you argue with a genie? Apparently not. No, it's not a good idea at all. Did you guys read the story this week where the guy lets the genie out and then...
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. No, you don't argue with them. So power is good. Losing power is bad in this world. I told you that these stories come from the group of people that we're going to read about this next week in Dorothy Mills. So maybe this week while you're reading about them, maybe you can think about their history as you read it and the sorts of stories they tell and see if they seem to go together in any way. Just a second. I wanted to mention one thing, but I don't know if this means anything to you guys anymore. How many of you have seen Disney's Aladdin? All right. Like the animated one, there was a new one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've seen the animated one. I just wondered if anyone caught this. Let me read this to you. Now, early that evening, the Caliph secretly left the palace. The Caliph he's the head of the church, honestly, but you can think of him as being the king. This is one where they're going to go in disguise and mingle with the common people, right? He secretly left the palace, accompanied by his Grand Vizier, Jafar. Did you notice? Mm. They used a lot of things in the movie that are actually from the Arabian Nights, like names. But we're also going to read the story of Aladdin, and you'll have to tell me if it's the same story that Disney told or not. This week, you're going to read about the 7 voyages of Sinbad. Why might someone in this world do a lot of traveling, do you think? To get rich? How do you get rich by traveling?
Discovering things.
Oh, that's good. Discovering things. And then you could, I don't know, write about it and sell your book, maybe? Is that what you're thinking? Or might you discover something that's worth money?
Yeah, or like something fun to do.
Maybe. Let me ask it this way. What do merchants do? How do merchants make money? They sell stuff. And we have merchants here in town, right? We go to a store or whatever, it's merchant. But what if you had something that's really common where you live, but in another country it's not very common at all? If something's not very common, does it cost a little or a lot? A lot. That's why gold is expensive, right? It's hard to find. There's not very much of it. And gravel is not very expensive. There's a lot of gravel. So what if you take the thing that you have a lot of, and it's cheap, and you take it to another country where they don't have very much of it? What will happen next? Those people that live in that other country will buy a lot of it. Something that they had in the East that we didn't have a lot of are spices. Spices. So we take it for granted. Do you have a spice cabinet in your house with lots and lots of spices? Yeah. Cinnamon. Is cinnamon precious? No. But it was once, right? Cinnamon and nutmeg and all of these spices. And so you could go to these other countries, sell what you have, and bring back the spices. That's going to come in big. The reason I tell you this story is because this is what Sinbad is up to. But things don't go quite as he planned. I want you to read. I guess I should tell you how many pages to read of the Arabian Nights. Could you please read pages 110 through 179 of the Arabian Nights, which isn't quite as many pages. So let's go over again. You're going to read the next Dorothy Mills chapter and answer the questions. You're going to retell the story about Columba, and somewhere you're going to put parallelism in your story. And you're going to read these pages of the Arabian Nights. And like I said, as you read about the tellers of these stories in Dorothy Mills, see if you can see any connection to what their history is like and what kind of stories they tell. Any questions? Any problems? Any comments? Are we good? All right. I'll see you guys next week.